Hi, watch and be in the know.
Chapter 1. Before Sin. 7 years with Ella. My name is Mark. I am 35 years old, and for 7 years now, I have been living with a woman who I once considered my home, my refuge, my meaning. Her name is Ella. She's 32 now. She's 3 years younger than me, and that's probably what I've always felt about her. Lightness, fire, spontaneity. We met by chance, as it often happens, at an event that I was actually going to miss. One of those evenings when you just want to lie down and disconnect from the world, but your friends persuade you and you go. Cocktail in hand, dim lights in the hall, the sound of voices and a voice, a ringing laugh. I turned around. She was standing at the bar in a dark blue dress, short hair, honey-colored eyes. "Hello, is this your glass or mine?" she said, pointing to the glass between us. That was the beginning. We've been talking all evening. About movies, about dreams, about fears. I, a man who had an office, a mortgage, a schedule, looked at her as if she were a living spark. 6 months later, she moved in with me. 2 years later, we got married. And all this time, I thought we were the perfect couple. Of course, we had difficulties. Who's without them? But I've never doubted her loyalty. Even in the moments of quarrels when we talked nonsense to each other. Even then, we shared a cozy apartment, shared morning rituals, coffee, a light kiss on the cheek before work, and on weekends, pancakes and her loud laughter when I tried to dance to jazz in the kitchen. She wasn't just a wife. She was a friend, my rock, and I didn't realize how much you can overlook when you trust someone completely. Chapter 2. The first crack. Ella's confession. It happened 2 years ago. That evening started out like any other. It was cool, early October. I came home after a hard day, work, meetings, calls. Fatigue gripped his shoulders. I warmed up the pasta, sat on the couch, and turned on the TV, just so it would make background noise. Ella said she was going to a colleague's housewarming party. I didn't remember the name, and why. Such events were something common for her. She adored noise, new people, bright lights. I didn't interrupt. I never bothered. It seemed right to me to trust. She left, slightly adjusting her earring in front of the mirror and giving me a kiss on the temple. "Don't stay too long, okay? I'll be back late, but I'll try not to make any noise." I nodded. "Be careful driving. Call me if you need anything." She just smiled. The hours passed. 2200 hours. 23:15. 0:40. I wrote, "Is everything okay?" There was no response. 1:27. Another message. "Do you want me to come pick you up?" Zero reaction. Zero reading marks. I started to get nervous. Ella didn't like alcohol. I almost never drank. Sometimes 1 glass of wine, for the sake of decency. But I knew how she could be influenced. How easy it is to laugh when there is a cheerful company nearby. I didn't know who was going to be at the party, and I didn't know if there were people I could trust. 4:03, the door opened. I was already dozing off on the couch, but I immediately jumped up. She entered on tiptoe, took off her shoes at the threshold. I smelled alcohol, not strong, but distinct. And yet, someone else's perfume. "I'm sorry it's so late." It dragged on. The phone went dead. "Everything is fine." She spoke quickly, avoiding his eyes. I just nodded, peering at her. "Have you been drinking?" "Yes. A little." "Don't worry, I took a taxi." She went to the bathroom. I remained rooted to the spot. Then nothing. Morning, coffee, apologies, a slight hangover. She was laughing at herself. I tried not to think about it. Just don't think. It's been almost a year. And one day, in the middle of summer, when we were going to visit Ella's parents, she said she wanted to talk. We were sitting in the car. The air conditioner was humming softly, and the asphalt was melting outside the window. "Mark, I need to tell you something." I felt the steering wheel tighten under my hands. "Tell me." Pause. She stared straight ahead, unblinking. "Do you remember that party? Then 2 years ago? I cheated on you." Silence. It's a long one. Dense. "What are you?" I started, but my tongue got tangled. "It was my colleague." Everything happened then. Once, after the party, I was silent. My heart was beating somewhere in my throat. Why are you talking about this now? She swallowed. I couldn't hide it anymore. Lived with it. I am ashamed. I really love you. But I couldn't look you in the eye anymore, knowing that I was lying. Do you know what the scariest thing is? Not anger, not pain, and the disappointment. It feels like someone has knocked the ground out from under you, and you're flying into the void. I left the car then. He just walked out. We didn't go to her parents. I haven't answered my phone in 24 hours. A day that felt like an eternity. 2 days later, she came to my house. I was sitting on the couch. Red eyes, crumpled napkins, trembling hands. I'm ready to do anything. Well, just don't go away. I looked at her, my wife, my traitor. I didn't know how to feel. Chapter 3. Forgiveness. New agreement. Forgiveness is a strange thing. It doesn't come suddenly, like a flash. Flows out of you, gradually, either like pus from a wound, or like water through a crack in a dam. For the first weeks after Ella's confession, I lived in another apartment with my brother. I didn't sleep well. Sometimes I just sat in the dark at night and stared at the wall. There was only one question in my head. How could she? I replayed every detail, every memory. That party. Her words. The smell on the clothes. Conversations. Glances. Moments where I missed something. She wrote every day. Long messages. Short voice messages. Sometimes it's just please, sometimes there are pages about how sorry she is. How she can't live without me. I didn't answer. I've read everything. To the last point. But there was a struggle inside. I remembered how I once kissed a girl at a college party. It was stupid. I was drunk. It didn't mean anything. And yet, my girlfriend forgave me then. Why can't I, as an adult man, forgive my wife, even if I was forgiven in my youth? I was fighting with myself. She confessed it herself. She quit after that. She quit the job where they met. Voluntarily. She's crying. He's begging. She loves you. Is not it so? A month later, I met her in a cafe. It was a neutral place. It's like a negotiation. She came first. She was thin and fragile, wearing a beige sweater that I gave her for her anniversary. Thanks for coming. I nodded. We talked for almost an hour. No charges.
No tantrums.
It's just two people who were once one body are now trying to figure out if it's possible to sew back what was cut. I know I've lost my trust. I understand it. But I want to try. I want to be with you. Please. I was looking at her. And then I offered a condition. I said, if we stay together, then we conclude a prenuptial agreement. She immediately tensed up. What? So that if you betray me again, everything will be clear. So that it wasn't just forgiveness. And the choice. You will choose to be with me for real. Or lose everything. She was silent. House, car, alimony, everything. There is no symmetry. Everything is in favor of the deceived. I will not be humiliated a second time. Pause. I agree. We hired lawyers. Everyone has their own way. I didn't want her to be able to say, I was forced. No, everything should be official. Cold. Legally. The contract stated, all premarital property remains with the owner. In case of infidelity on the part of one spouse, he loses the right to shared housing, a car, and alimony. All other property is divided 60/40 in favor of the victim. Mandatory independent legal advice from both sides. We signed the papers. The pen was shaking in her hand. She wasn't crying, but his lips pressed into a thin line. I didn't regret it. If we have to build anew, then on reinforced concrete. Without illusions. Then there was therapy, joint sessions, conversations, recapitulations. It was difficult. It hurt. But over time I started breathing. I held her hand again. Sometimes he even laughed. We went on vacation. We cooked together. We were doing repairs. Everything seemed to be getting better. I started to believe that maybe we did it. But the truth is like water under asphalt. It will always find its way out. Chapter 4. 5 months of lies. Reconstruction, sometimes the pain doesn't come at the moment of betrayal, but later. When you find out that the betrayal wasn't spontaneous, it wasn't a mistake. When it lasted for weeks, for months, when it was life. Another, hidden from you. Last month, I received a message from an unknown woman on Facebook. Alice, the wife of that man, Bill.
Ellas colegas.
The one I thought she had a one-time episode with. Alice found me through my wife's profile. Wrote, "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think you should know the truth. I'm Bill's wife. I found evidence of their affair. It's much deeper than just one mistake." My breath caught in my throat. We got on the phone. I could hear in her voice the same pain that lived in me 2 years ago. I found the correspondence. They dated for 5 months. It wasn't a mistake, Mark. It was a novel. Real. A long one.
Sexy.
They met at hotels, went to work meetings together. They talked about how he makes her laugh. How easy it is for her to be with him. How simple it is. In one of the letters, she said that with you she always has to be right. And with him she can be real. Silence. I held the phone in my hand as if it had burned my fingers. I met with Ella 2 days later. At home this time. In our house. In our kitchen. "You lied to me." She understood everything right away. I didn't ask, "What are you talking about?" She wasn't pretending. She just lowered her eyes. "How many times?" "I don't know exactly," she whispered. "More than 10. "How long did it last?" 5 months. It was the moment when the world collapsed again. Only this time from a different height. I sat down. My hands were shaking. Not out of anger. Not out of rage. It's from awareness. All these months. All those moments when she was laughing next to me. When we had dinner. When I stroked her hair before going to sleep. She was already somewhere else. With someone else. I closed my eyes. And then I started to imagine. Not because I wanted to, but because the brain itself began to restore the picture. Step by step. I see her at work. He's tall and athletic. The type of men who are called charming. They laugh over coffee. He tells a joke. She touches his shoulder. Lunch. Joint projects. Meetings outside the office. Dinner under the pretext of a business conversation. He tells her that she is beautiful. She smiles like it's the first time she's heard it in a long time. He asks if she wants to go to the hotel to take her time home. She hesitates. Then he agrees. I imagine her getting out of the shower in a towel. She laughs. He hugs her. They fall asleep next to each other. And they wake up. She kisses him. Then he goes home. To me. She comes home at 6:45 p.m. She says she was delayed in traffic. I hug her. I'm cooking dinner. She laughs at the way I chop onions. I feel like a fool. Not just deceived, but ridiculed. I was her background, her safety, her safe haven, where she returned after. "Why didn't you tell me the whole truth 2 years ago?" I asked when I opened my eyes. She was silent for a long time. Then, "I knew you wouldn't forgive. If you had found out that it was more than once, you would have left. I wanted us to have a chance. You didn't give me a choice. You took away my right to decide for my life. You chose for me." And again she lied. I didn't scream. He didn't hit the table with his fists. I just got up and went into the bedroom. I didn't sleep that night. Again. But now, it was different. I didn't try to understand her anymore. I began to understand myself. Chapter 5. Internal crisis. Talking to yourself silence. That's what has become the main sound in my house. The silence between the question and the answer. Between looking and turning away. Between the heart and the mind. I didn't believe Ella anymore. It took me a while to figure it out. But one day I woke up and my head was empty. Where attachment used to live, doubt lived. I started talking to myself. Not out loud, but in my mind. It was as if he was trying to find answers inside himself, because on the outside, everything was too false, too shaky. You knew that. Somewhere deep down, I knew. No, I trusted you. I wanted to believe. I chose trust. Or maybe you were just afraid of the truth. Maybe, I was asking myself, how do you feel about her now? and he couldn't answer. I felt everything at once, and nothing. Pain, disgust, nostalgia, anger, pity. Sometimes, in moments of complete silence, I found myself missing her. Not for the traitor, not for the lie, for who she was, or who she seemed to be. I looked at her in the morning, how she silently drank coffee, how she sat hugging her knees. Her face was tired. She wasn't wearing makeup, she wasn't acting. She's just a woman I've known for 7 years. And he didn't know at all. Why didn't you leave right away? The question my friends asked me when I told them. The question I asked myself every night. The answer? Because I didn't want it to be true. Because forgiveness seemed stronger. Because I believed that love is not when everything is perfect, but when you struggle. But how to fight when the weapon is in the hands of another? When every step you take is in a minefield? I started avoiding her touch. Not on purpose. It was a body. She touched my arm, and I shuddered. She hugged me, and I felt like a prisoner. Everything that used to be warm was now sticky, doubtful. You have to forgive if you want to stay. But how can you forgive when your choice is taken away from you? When you weren't given the whole picture? When were you kept in a half-truth like in a cage? One day I saw her phone on the kitchen table. Blocked. I didn't even try to unlock it. Not because I trusted him, but because he didn't want to know. I couldn't stand another truth. I started thinking about getting a divorce. I haven't said it out loud yet, but I've been walking this path inside. It was like standing on the edge and looking down. And if she's changed? And if it's really in the past? And if we still stand up? Every if is like a rope that you grab while you fall. But then I remembered the contract. Our prenuptial agreement. He was my insurance policy. My proof that I'm not completely stupid. That I still thought one step ahead. What if I leave not with my bare hands? And then I realized, I don't choose her anymore. I choose myself. I was still there, but in the shower, I started to leave. Chapter 6. The last conversation. Shattered trust. The evening was warm. It was a rare day when the air was almost summer, despite the calendar autumn. The windows were ajar. The curtains were slowly moving in a light breeze. There were 2 glasses of wine on the table. One is full. The second one is touched only by a sip. I was sitting on the edge of the couch, like on the edge of a chair in a doctor's office, waiting for the verdict. Next to her is Ella, silent. She didn't look me in the eye. I knew something was going to happen. We need to talk, I finally began. The voice was calm, alien. She nodded, slowly, as if she had accepted in advance that she would be cut. I didn't go in from far away. I don't believe you anymore. She blinked.
No tears, no tantrums.
Just take a deep breath. I understand. Do you understand? I raised my eyebrows a little. Then why do you think that after all this something can be fixed? She didn't answer for a long time. Then she said, because I love you. I chuckled. It's bitter. And I'm not sure it matters. She took a step towards me. She held out her hand. Pulled away. Don't. Not now. Then when? Her voice rose higher. When, Mark? Tell me, what do you want? Leave? Finally? I looked at her. I do not know. But I know exactly what I don't want. To live with a man who decides over and over again for me what I should know and what I shouldn't. Pause. Why did you sign that contract, Ella? She blinked. Because I wanted to prove to you that you can trust me. No. I shook my head. You signed it because you wanted to stay. At any cost. Without even telling the whole truth. I got up. I walked around the room. Gradually. Almost ritually. I've been trying to forgive for months. I've been working on myself. I believed that you had changed. And do you know what the most annoying thing is? She looked up. That if you had told the whole truth back then, maybe I would have really forgiven. Her chin twitched. And now you've robbed me of both forgiveness and the truth. I live in the shadow of your lies. I live next to a man I don't know. She sank into a chair. She bowed her head. And she whispered, I didn't think I'd lose you. Like this. Not after everything. I didn't think I'd lose myself. I took the glass, looked at the wine and didn't touch it. I'm not saying I'm filing for divorce tomorrow, but I'm saying that right now. I don't want to be with you. I can't sleep next to you. I can't touch it. I can't live with a trust that doesn't exist anymore. She didn't say anything. I just sat there, quiet. Is it broken? Maybe. Or just forced to accept. I went into the bedroom. He closed the door. Not locked, just quiet. And that night, I slept. For the first time in a long time.
No dreams. No nightmares.
Just silence. Candle chapter 7. Divorce. Or not. The morning was almost ordinary. I woke up to the sun peeking through the curtains. On the pillow next to me, emptiness. Ella was already up. Or maybe she hadn't slept at all. The house was quiet. Not like before cozy, but hollow. Like an apartment where the owners are gone, but traces of their life remain. Page facing up the agreement. I opened my laptop, went to a legal advice website. In the search bar, I typed, "How to file for divorce with a prenuptial agreement." No panic, just dry curiosity. Numbers, dates, documents. I wasn't reading with pain. I read like someone preparing to move, or for surgery. We signed the agreement 2 years ago. Back then, it was an act of distrust. Now it's my lifeline. It had everything. In case of infidelity, the unfaithful spouse forfeits their right to shared property and the car. No alimony. The rest of the assets split 60/40ths in favor of the wronged party. We both received legal counsel. The agreement was airtight. I reread it again, every line, and I realized I'm not afraid of divorce. I was only afraid of making the decision out of revenge. But I don't want revenge. I want freedom. Telephone receiver. I called the lawyer. The same one we used for the agreement. The conversation was brief. Yes, the agreement holds. Yes, she loses the home and the car. Yes, you're protected. Want me to file the paperwork for you? Not yet, I said. I need some time. Maybe a week. Maybe 2. Later, I looked in the mirror. Tired. Shadows under my eyes. Stubble. But the look in my eyes, clear. I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a man making a choice. Package. The next day, I started packing. Only the things that were truly mine. Books. A hard drive with old archives. The coffee maker I bought for myself. A cracked glass I somehow loved. Ella watched silently. Sometimes she tried to speak, but the words faded in the air. Have you really decided? I nodded. For now, yes. I won't fight you in court. If you choose to go, I'll sign everything. That was unexpected. No threats. No drama. Just gave up? Or finally began to understand? But even then, I hesitated. Not because I still loved her, but because 7 years, that's a life. Throwing it away felt like amputating a leg. Even if it's infected, it still hurts. Spiral calendar. I gave myself a deadline. 14 days. 2 weeks to understand. Am I divorcing for freedom or from pain? I kept living in the house. Slept separately. We barely spoke. But in those days, I started listening to myself. And you know what? The quieter the world outside became, the louder my voice inside grew. Chapter 8. What I learned about myself. And about forgiveness. Sometimes we think we understand everything about ourselves. What we endure. What we'll never forgive again. Who we are when we love, when we're angry, when we're alone. But true understanding doesn't come in the moment of crisis. Comes in silence. When you're sitting on the floor in the living room, surrounded by boxes of your things, and the silence is louder than the pain. I began to remember, back arrow, our first vacation. How we drove along the coast, listening to old tracks. She was laughing, her hair flying in the wind. I remember thinking, this is it. This is my family. Back arrow, the evening she said, I want a child. And in that moment, I didn't feel fear. I felt hope. I was ready. Back arrow, but now I didn't know who she was. And more importantly, who I was with her. Performing arts forgiveness. It's not generosity. It's not weakness. It's a choice. Sometimes a wise one. Sometimes premature. Forgiveness without truth is false peace. It's like putting a bandage on a wound, but the blood still flows, and you pretend everything's fine. I realized I hadn't forgiven 2 years ago. I postponed the pain, sealed it with a contract, put a mask of control over it. And now comes the price. Speech balloon on the third day of my silence. Ella came to me. I know I've lost you, but can you at least tell me? Who are you now? I answered, I'm a man who finally understood that love isn't salvation. It's not endurance. And it's not even forgiveness. It's honesty. And without it, everything else is meaningless. I didn't want to humiliate her. I just wanted, for the first time, to be honest with myself. Studio microphone, I recorded a voice memo. You can forgive, but you don't have to stay. You can understand, but you don't have to continue. You can love, but you don't have to destroy yourself with it. Calendar on the 14th day, the last day of my deadline. I woke up and realized I wasn't angry anymore, and I wasn't afraid. I was simply free. Free from illusions. From should. From, but she tried. I sat at the table, picked up a pen, and wrote, I'm filing for divorce, not out of resentment, but out of clarity. Scroll chapter 9, marriage as a deal. And why love can't be a guarantee when we get married, we don't always realize. We're signing a deal, even if that sounds harsh. Even if the dress was white and the music was soft. Behind all the words, forever. In joy and in sorrow, there's always something much more grounded. A contract, page facing up. Ella and I didn't just have a marriage. We had a prenuptial agreement. A legal document with signatures, clauses, and precise language. In case of infidelity, the guilty party forfeits the right to alimony. The house and car go to the non-offending spouse. When we signed it, I thought, this is protection. Insurance in case of future betrayal. But you know what I understand now? Pushpin, no contract protects your heart. You can secure your finances, split assets, take the apartment from the cheater, but broken heart, trust, loyalty, openness, they can't be enforced. No contract makes you loved. No paper guarantees honesty. I remembered how Ella signed that document. She laughed and said, I'll sign anything as long as you know how much being with you means to me. And I thought, that's devotion. But now I know it was just panic. She was afraid to lose me, not valuing me. Brain, a marriage built on love is beautiful, but a marriage without honesty is a trap. Pushpin and a prenup is not a lifeline. It's the last shield when you're already drowning. Balance scale, I talked to the lawyer. I reread the contract. It was clearly written. I knew, in the event of divorce, the house would be mine, the car too, no alimony, division 60/40ths in my favor. But I didn't care anymore. What's the point of winning in court if you've already lost your soul? Chart decreasing love isn't a savings account. It's not secured by paperwork. And when it shatters, no notary can glue the pieces back together. Paperclip, but you know what I did? I printed the contract, placed it in front of me, and wrote at the top, now I understand why this was necessary, but I no longer want to live in a marriage that needs protection from betrayal. Chapter 10, friends and family, how they reacted. And who stayed when something like infidelity happens? You think you're suffering alone, that it's your pain, your wife, your decision. But the truth is, betrayal echoes through everyone around you. Everyone who was part of your us. The first person I told was Max, my best friend. We've been friends since school. He knows me inside out. I invited him for a beer. We sat down, and I said, remember when Ella cheated 2 years ago? I didn't tell you everything back then. He tensed up. He immediately knew it was serious. I told him everything. About the 5 months. About Alice. About the contract. About how Ella had hidden the truth. He stayed quiet for a long time. Then he sighed and said, bro, this isn't on you. You trusted someone who didn't deserve it. You were honest. She wasn't. Max isn't someone who throws words around lightly. But I needed that. And suddenly I didn't feel alone anymore. Then I called my sister. She lives in another city, has kids and her own life. I didn't want to burden her, but She deserved to know. Rom, you know I've never interfered in your marriage, she said. But I'll tell you this. Trust is like a mirror. Once it's shattered, even if you glue it back together, the cracks remain. You owe yourself happiness, not just politeness. I cried after that call, quietly in the empty apartment, not because I was weak, but because I felt loved without conditions. My parents? That was a different story. My mom said right away, I never trusted her. She smiled too easily when she didn't mean it, and explained too much when no one asked. I wanted to get angry, but I realized she wasn't blaming me. She was trying to support me. That's her way. Harsh but honest. My dad stayed silent for a while. Then he said, leave with your head held high. You did everything you could. And when a man does everything but it still doesn't work, he's not the one to blame. The woman who broke her word is. Some friends said, give her another chance if she's really sorry. But I understood. They feared change more than they feared betrayal. One guy even joked, well, now you've got an excuse to cheat on her in return. I deleted his number. If someone sees pain as a reason for revenge instead of a moment for an honest choice, they're not my kind of person. You know what I realized? When you lose trust in a marriage, you start finding truth in other people. In those who don't pressure you, don't urge you to not act rashly, don't justify betrayal, don't act like they know better, are simply there, without conditions. Not everyone stayed, but those who did became my anchor. And sometimes, when a family falls apart, you finally begin to see who your real family always was. Chapter 11. A look in the mirror: how infidelity changed me, and what I no longer forgive. There comes a moment when, for the first time in a long while, you stop in front of the mirror, not just to wash your face or fix your shirt, but to really look yourself in the eyes. I did that the morning after I learned the full truth. Not the partial truth. Not the convenient version. The whole thing. I looked at myself and didn't recognize who I saw. I saw a man who knew he had been betrayed. Twice. Once by her body, and once by her honesty. And suddenly, I saw something else too. I saw how much I had changed. There was a time when I compromised, when I made excuses for others, when I told myself, everyone makes mistakes. What matters is remorse. Now I think differently. I no longer forgive lies, not even the small ones, not even the ones told out of fear, because lying isn't just protection. It's the destruction of trust. I no longer excuse betrayal. It doesn't matter how many times. It doesn't matter with whom. If you could look me in the eyes and cheat at the same time, then you were choosing someone else. I no longer believe in forced choices. You drank? You were bored? You felt lonely? You could have talked to me. You could have left. But you chose to cheat. And me? I was learning patience. I went to therapy. I tried to forgive. I defended you to others. I thought, if she confessed, she must be trustworthy. But now I know, not every confession is truth. I became someone else. Not bitter, not broken, but clear. I became a man who values clarity more than hope, who chooses reality over fantasy, who sets boundaries even when it hurts, who will never again stay in a relationship where trust has to be re-earned every single day. I looked in the mirror and understood, I deserve better, not because I'm perfect, but because I was real. That's how infidelity changed me, broke me, so I could rebuild myself. And if you ask me what I no longer forgive, I no longer forgive myself for forgiving others for so long.